Welcome to the August 21st board meeting of the Lane Transit District Board of Directors. I'll start with a roll call. Susan Cox.
Here.
Pete Knox.
Here.
Kelly Sutherland is en route. Lawrence Green. Here. Michelle Weber.
Here.
Heather Murphy. Any adjustments to the agenda? Comments from the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. President. The few things we continue to hire. Right now, we have a class of 14. This is bus operators, by the way, in class. That puts us at a total of 43. You'll recall that we put a goal in place of 50 new faces in the calendar year. So our next class will get us there. That should be in October. So when we do that, we'll have a good celebration over that. Now, why is that important? Well, last week we just did our bid. So operators came in and they picked their work that they'll be doing in the coming weeks. We were able to increase service by about 8% in terms of revenue hours. So that's good. You recall that we reduced service and now we were able to add it back based on some of the hiring. This is good for a couple of reasons. One, more service to the public generally means more ridership. We recently increased frequency on the Rhody Express. That's the service that gets you down to Florence. And in the first month, that increased by over 50%. So we'll be tracking that, but more service means more ridership. And secondly, it means better schedule opportunity for our operators. They pick in seniority order. So as they go down the list, there's more opportunities for different types of schedules for them. Finally, not finally, but also, we continue to track on the conversation relating to Franklin Boulevard. And I'm sure you'll hear more about that. There's been all kinds of changes to the infrastructure and the street design downtown and other places. MLK Boulevard now has a bus-only lane. There's been changes and investments in bike lanes in the downtown area. And then the Franklin Boulevard conversation is starting to pick up as well. Our interest in the Franklin Boulevard project is safety implementation and improved service. Our MX route runs right through the heart. It's right in the heart of our MX route, carries upwards of 40% of our ridership. We want to make sure that we're operating safely and effectively in an area that contains a higher amount of both pedestrians, students, folks going to events, and motorists as well. So we'll be tracking that carefully and letting you all know where we're at. We do have a roundabout expert. I didn't know there was such a thing, but there is a roundabout expert looking at how do we work with 60-foot articulated buses going through those intersections as well. We're working cooperatively with the city on this, and they've been cooperative as well. So it's a good relationship, but just wanted you to know that. You've noticed the modulars out in the parking lot. We're going to begin our modernization of our operations command center. So that's the side of the building to our east. And that will update where our operators report, where we control from the offices, what's going on the streets and all that kind of thing. So that's a good project and we're excited about that. And then also Eugene Station project modernization should be coming to a wrap here in a handful of weeks, sometime in October. So we should be able to reopen that and we'll have more to come on that. So with that, I'll conclude my comments and take any questions.
Not a question or comment, but if you're up to organizing a tour at an appropriate time with the new station, that'd be great.
Oh, we absolutely will. There's still it's still an active construction site.
Yeah.
As soon as we get to a place where we know where it won't be anymore, we will absolutely do that, and we'll do a good celebration when we open it. Great. You'll like it. It's gonna be nice.
Okay, public comments. Nobody has signed up. Do we have anybody online?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda, excuse me. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Thank you.
Mr. President, yes.
Yes, Michelle.
I would like to make a motion to remove item A from the consent agenda for discussion about process.
Second. All those in favor just say aye. 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 Okay, we'll remove that one. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt the remainder of the consent agenda. Moved by-
Second.
Moved by Heather, second by Michelle. Do a roll call. Susan?
Yes.
Pete?
Aye.
Kelly's not here yet. Lawrence?
Aye.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Heather?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. That motion passes. Next, we'll discuss the appointment of members to the STIF Advisory Committee. Michelle?
Yes, thank you. So as I was reading through the packet, I think this is maybe the first time I've ever felt like I didn't really know who the applicants were or have a good feel for kind of what they were bringing to the committee. So I just kind of would like to talk about the information that we are provided and also maybe consider giving the board a heads up when those committee openings are available so that we can also reach out to members of our community that we feel would be, you know, really good assets to that type of a conversation.
Comments?
No, I think it's a good point. I read through them, but I wondered if how they were, or were they just asked for a paragraph biography, or maybe we could have a simple application or something. So we kind of know if there's something we want to kind of tease out.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I agree. You know, that's on me to notify the board when those pieces are open, and clearly that did not happen. This is the first time in a while that we've done this process. LCOG usually handled this, and we're stepping in this year. So this is a lesson learned. Dave is going to talk a bit about the overall process of how we got to the applicants who you have in your packet.
I think Pete had a comment first.
Sorry, Pete.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Heather said, and when I applied for strategic planning committee, I had to submit a full form with questions and along with a resume. So the people who got to vote on me, even though it was on a consent agenda, they could see who I was, because most of the board didn't have, well, none of the people on the board at the time had a clue who I was. So, I with Michelle on this, just a paragraph bio doesn't really tell me who they are, why they want to be on this committee. You know, a little bit more information. Doesn't have to be a novel, but it would be nice to know what their motivation and how they fit into this committee.
Susan?
Yes, one thing I also am remembering is that this was my understanding or recollection that this is a community-driven process and not necessarily one that is selected or approved by the board. Am I correct? So I think one of the things we need to be conscious of is that it is from the community, and that's, while there's a good idea, have a clear process and equity and everything, that also the board needs to remember that this isn't on us necessarily, or my understanding of it.
Right. I would just add that we are being asked to approve these committee members. So just for my decision-making, it would just be helpful to have a little bit more history of their backgrounds and what they're bringing to the conversation.
Staff comments?
Yeah, so good evening, board chair and board members. My name is Dave Roth, Director of Mobility Planning and Policy. I just want to start off by saying I really appreciate the conversation and comments here tonight, and it's excellent feedback for us as we take on this process. I think as Jameson mentioned, in the past, LCOG was managing this process. So this is not entirely new for us, but it is a new process this year for us, and something that we'll go through every other year or every STIF cycle, where we reconvene the STIF advisory committee and we seek new members. So in terms of continuous improvements, this is great feedback for us. I thought it might be helpful just to share some of the outreach that we did for the new committee members. So we posted the opportunity on LTD's career website. So we used our HR portal to solicit new members and have an application process. So that began at the end of June on June 28th. And the closing date was originally set for July 26th. However, we did decide to leave that open a little bit longer. Just to allow for more applications to come in. We did a review of applications on July 30th, and that's when we made the decision to forward these to you for your consideration. We did not receive any other additional applications after that July 30th date, but just in terms of the outreach that we did for this round, and again, we'll incorporate the feedback we heard tonight for future rounds. Our marketing team posted about the committee openings on social media. I know that our community resource liaison, Sarah Koski, reached out to her community to solicit applicants. Our partners at LCOG asked our retiring STIF advisory committee members for recommendations and to get the word out. Kathleen Flynn, who I'm sitting in for tonight, our mobility grant specialist, reached out to RideSource to recruit through that community. I did speak about this at the strategic planning committee meeting back in June and asked for people to spread the word. And I also reached out to some of our city partners to have them support us. So we did do a bit of outreach, but I think we can do more and we can do better to communicate in the future. So definitely we'll make that commitment.
I'd add 2 organizations to your list of outreach. That would be both chambers, Springfield and Eugene.
And
maybe you did already.
Thank you very much for that, Chair. I should mention that Ally did reach out to the chamber, so we'll make sure that they're on the list too.
And not to forget the rural communities.
Rural absolutely.
Chambers. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve that item.
I move to adopt LTD resolution number 2024-08-21-022, appointing members to the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Advisory Committee.
Second.
Moved by Michelle, seconded by Heather. We'll do a roll call. Pete? Aye. Michelle?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Lawrence? Yes. Heather?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So that passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have an Employee of the Month presentation. I think Eric's going to do that one.
Yeah, so it's my pleasure, board president, board members, CEO Jameson, a pleasure to introduce really a couple guys. This month's award was for a team. I'll start with Pete Butler, who's been with the district just over 2 years, journey level mechanic. Carrie Cooper, who's been with us coming up on 27 years. Not just a journey level mechanic, but also, am I wrong? Did you get the 16? Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, so, all right. Come on, 17. I gave you some extra time. It seems like forever. I've only been here 3 years. Thanks for correcting. Appreciate that. He's also a shift maintenance instructor too, so he doesn't just get the work done. He trains people to get the work done too. So great, great employees. That early morning, I think Carrie said it was at, and correct me on the time too, 6:35. They get off at 7:30. A bus, an MX, was broken down, had an air leak, wouldn't charge up. Carrie went on the lot, took a look at it, and the airbag was blown. It wasn't like there was just a leak somewhere. There was no other MXs to get service on the road. We were short a bus. Carrie told the supervisor, hey, give me a little bit of help. We can get this thing in here and change the bag. Not a job that typically happens super fast. It's a lot that goes into it. And Carrie and Pete put it up on a lift, changed the bag out in time for when the driver came out to put full service on the road. So congratulations, Carrie and Pete. And I want to pass the the floor over to you if you have anything you want to say as well.
Yeah, just that it's kind of a normal day for us in maintenance, running that, I know it is in operations too, that trying to balance everything out and get everything out on time, but yeah, it really wasn't a big deal, but it's what we do pretty much on all the shifts really, because day shifts dealing with the road calls, trying to keep all those buses on the road. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, so. And Alan was a big part of that too, because he was all over our supervisor, so he's always letting us know throughout the shift where we're at with the count on the buses and what we need to get out the door. So when I went out there and knew it was down, knew it had to get done so we can keep full run of MX out there. So.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here. Thank you to your coworkers for coming, being part of the team. A couple of things for you, a little pin that you can wear. Nice letter. Certificate. And I believe there's a monetary award coming. You already got it. That's good. And a nice poster. Great. Again, thank you very much. Thanks for being here and everything you. Thank you.
Hey guys, hey team, I'm on here, Jim was somebody get a picture of all up front. Sign up.
We used to do that at council meetings all the time. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you some extra to go.
Yeah, if you get to towards the podium, so you're out of the.
Maybe in front of Ally there.
Just go.
You want to do it over now?
We go. Gotta hide out. Let's go up in front. Oh, yeah, go over there. Say, "George, come on in," 'cause I'm tall. Go down there, Steve. So people in the front.
Well, look, I can.
Very good. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Thanks to all of you. Those pictures are you, the one that are on these. You got it. Oh, that was the first. Okay, triennial results, Rebecca. I know you've been looking forward to this. You'll do fine.
Good evening, Board President, board members. My name is Rebecca Hay, and I'm the Compliance Officer here for LTD. The purpose of this presentation is to make the board aware of the 2024 triennial review and where we are at in that process. This is informational only and no action is required. So what is a triennial review? The best way I can explain it, it's like a health check for the district. It's to make sure everything is working as it should. It allows the Federal Transit Administration, which actually oversees the triennial, to make sure LTD is following regulations and best practice. FTA actually hires consultants to conduct the review. It occurs every 3 years, with this one actually being every 4 years due to COVID. In total, there is 23 review areas. So what is the process of a triennial review? The first part is actually what they call a pre-site review. And this is where LTD submits documentation to FTA through their portal that they review. And once they review it, they come to an on-site review, which is actually my favorite part. They conduct interviews with our staff, our subject matter experts. And what's great about this is that you learn so much with them being on site and how we can improve, and they give us feedback and kind of that one-on-one process. After that, they actually issue what is called a preliminary finding, and that is just a high-level overview of what was conducted in the interview process. And it really helps LTD understand what we need to work on. From that, they issue a draft report to us, which lists the deficiencies and the corrective actions. And LTD actually has time to review that and either agree with that or give feedback on it. And with this particular draft, we agreed to everything and let them know that. And they came back with what is called the final report. And that actually solidifies the 9 deficiencies that you see in the AIS, as well as the corrective actions we must take. So where is LTD at in this process? We are actually at the final report stage. And with that, there's actually 3 areas that did not apply to LTD. So that leaves 20 review areas that apply to us. And out of that, we had 9 deficiencies. LTD actually received the final report on January 29th. And we have 120 calendar days from that to submit all corrective actions, which means we have until November 11th to get FTA all corrective actions. And at this time, we are on schedule and we're doing a great job with that. So with that, I can entertain any questions that you may have on this.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Michelle?
So in my banking world, these audits and final reports could sometimes come with financial impact.
Yeah.
Does that impact, is there any of that on this, in this audit, like any potential financial impact for non-compliance or for missing targets?
It's funny that you say audit, because one of the things that FTA is really pushing is that they don't want it to be seen as an audit. They really want to see it as a review and an opportunity for them to come in and give us recommendations. And as long as we are following those recommendations, there's not going to be any financial impact. If we choose to ignore those recommendations, yes, there will be. Yes. Which we have never done in the past, or will not do now.
Good answer.
Any other questions?
Other questions? Heather, did you have something?
No, it was interesting.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so this isn't out of the norm. The results that we see here is pretty normal stuff. And what is out of the norm is the areas that we didn't have findings in, which I found interesting. Usually they crawl all over you for procurement, right? How are you spending the money? We did well there. Finance, how are you tracking the money? We did well there. So some pretty good results, some good work to do. This gives us an opportunity to reset and have a baseline, so we know that we'll be where we need to be. So it's good information. They also offered Rebecca and her team the opportunity to go to other exit interviews with transit systems, because the focus kind of changes every once in a while. The focus changed in this one, and it's in the paper that they were looking at, how we were extra care and spending the Carissa money and the care relief funds. So they were focused on that. They were also focused on property, how we handle our excess property. So that was a focus area that wasn't the same as the last time. So being able to see those coming forward or moving forward will be helpful as well. So good process. We're going to make sure we have everything documented. And probably mid year and a half from now, we'll probably do a mock triennial internally just to make sure that we're tracking where we need to be. So
Great, thank you, and nice presentation.
Thank you.
Performance results. I see Amy's name here, but it's here.
So Amy is sick. She got sick
Oh,
today.
okay.
I can deliver the report high level. It's just what's in the packet.
Sure.
Can I stay here? Or do you want me to go
No.
to the hot seat?
You can stay here.
Good, my water's here. So in your packet, there's a, excuse me, for information only, of course, there's a AIS on where we are for 9 different performance areas that are included in our strategic business plan. You'll see that they, in the chart, they're color coded, and the green means good, on track, we are moving. The orange triangle says, okay, we're going to pay a little more attention to these areas. So we have 2 of those out of the 7. Those are implementing a strategy for achieving our DVE goal, which we're working on, and also the transition into mobility manager by 2025, the Reimagine the Ride piece, which is moving forward. We just have not hit any of the milestone pieces as of yet. We've been focused on the foundational activities, which is making sure our base level ridership is performing well, as evidenced through the recruiting strategy. Some of the information on the second page in the quarterly performance indicators, that's interesting. You'll see in the VRH, which is vehicle revenue hours. So that's the time a vehicle is actually in service, not when it's going to the point, but when it's actually picking up customers. We've been able to increase some of those hours within our scheduled service. So that means we're getting a little bit more efficient that way. There's less what we call deadhead time in those routes. Complaints we're tracking as well. We're doing something different on the complaints. Not just tracking the numbers, but understanding the what does this mean question. Is it something that we need to educate on internally or educate on externally? Or is it something that could be a bit out of our control? And I'll give you a solid example of that. Our on-time performance has gone down a bit. Now we've added new operators, and that's probably part of the story. You know, as people, you know, get more time behind the wheel, they tend to be able to get more efficient at their routing. But there's been traffic and road changes downtown. You recall our buses come into downtown and go out of downtown. If you've driven downtown in the past few months, I can stop talking right there. But there's been some challenges there, and that's being reflected in our on-time performance. So we'll be tracking that as well. Typically, personally, I look at, did we leave the gate on time? Because that's in our control. So if the routes get on schedule on time, then that's more of in our control than what happens in downtown. So just a side note on that. The other thing you'll notice is that our costs relating to maintenance is continuing to go up. That's in light of some of the costs for parts, some of the costs for oil, but also some of our vehicles coming off warranty. So we have to maintain those as well. So I'll stop there and take any questions that you might have, but Amy's going to be back before you in a few weeks. I'm sorry you got the B side of the presentation, but that's where we are.
Any questions, comments? No, great. Thanks, Jameson. Next, we're going to talk about anti-trafficking. Sarah Koski.
Good evening, board presidents, members of our illustrious LTD board. I am Community Resource Liaison Sarah Koski. So honored to be here. This presentation to you today is a little bit of a smaller, streamlined version of what I presented to SPC this month. So if you want to see an extended version, it is online. Because of just the gravity of the conversation, I use stock photography, and I mid-sentence got distracted last time, and in honor of our new director of marketing, I decided not to put it on screen. So it's just me, myself, and I, no visuals. So raw, rough, uncut, a little bit of statistics of what's going on in our community and what LTD is doing to be a champion of working on anti-trafficking policies. So before I start in this presentation, the one thing that I really want to address is it's a very heavy topic, can be very triggering at times, whether we ourselves have experienced it, know of someone, or even it just is very uncomfortable. So if there's a moment where you have to take a time to breathe, ground yourself, leave the room, I welcome that at any time. No harm, no foul. I will not be offended. So if you all walk out in the single moment, I will know. But again, just to really emphasize that this is a very heavy topic, and I am a very excited, happy individual who smiles all the time, but that doesn't negate the real impact that is going on in our community here. So trafficking consists of multi-levels. Human trafficking can be trafficking for soldiers in times of war. We're in a very peaceful time in the United States. We don't have a lot of child soldiers, right? But what that can mean is labor trafficking. And it's not just in communities of poverty. A lot of labor trafficking happens in pods of wealth, you know, in the country clubs or the Martha's Vineyards, whether it is for nannies or cooks or those who clean homes. Here in Lane County, we do see a lot of labor trafficking in the marijuana fields. So very capricious youth want to go have copious amounts of recreational marijuana. They go to these fields. Now they don't have their IDs. You know, they are now locked in a location and they're forced to work. So it is in our own backyard. So labor trafficking, sex trafficking, again, I-5 corridor to kind of paint you a photo, right? We hear, so again, reinforcing what we hear. The more we hear this, the more we meditate on it, the more it gets in us, the more this education, we are all, you know, it's not that it's a pandemic like COVID, but we're all infected to affect other people, right? Taking this knowledge, taking this information to share with others is our own positive pandemic, something that we can do to really influence culture in this community. Sexual trafficking is defined, and I'll read it. The U.S. Department of Justice defines human trafficking as a crime that involves the exploitation of a person for labor, services, or commercial sex. Sex trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for commercial sex induced by force, fraud, coercion. What's really interesting is anyone under the age of 18, whether they say that they are involved in a sexual relation or not by choice, when it comes down to it regarding the Department of Justice, if you move an individual and have sex with them, it is considered trafficking if they are under 18. So the work that we've been doing here at LTD is focused on two things when it comes to sex trafficking: adult sex trafficking, and there's a task force for that. And then there's an additional task force for when it comes to children. So to kind of get you some more knowledge, there's a lot of statistics, right? According to the Department of Justice, trafficking would not be trafficking without it being a mobile crime. So why LTD and why even consider this? Trafficking regards mobility. Locations, you know, if I am a woman who's being trafficked, I need to get trafficked from one location to another to do and, you know, have those interactions that I need to have, right? I might get beat up. I might have someone who is aggressive who hurts me badly. I gotta move from where I'm at to the hospital. I might need, you know, like an IUD or something like that. So now I need to move from the hospital to Planned Parenthood. Unfortunately, I might become pregnant, whether I want to keep that child or not, depending on your beliefs. You know, what we see a lot with trafficked individuals is they are having abortions at an unprecedented rate, right? So even in our own backyard, that bus stop to get to Planned Parenthood is a very hotbed of activity, right, in our own community. So mobility transport plays a huge role in the crime of trafficking, but it also plays a even stronger role in the redemption of the individual rescued from that trade. And so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So 2 things on the negative, 2 things on the positive. The negative is trafficking, the recruitment. So folks can go where those high school colors go to around high school, look for and recruit young women in middle school or high school. I am saying a lot women, but we're seeing in our own community women, men, girls, boys, and those who identify on the spectrum of any gender identity. So I am referencing a lot female, but here in our own town, it's everyone and anyone. The average age is now for demand 12 to 13 years old, right? The FBI has just stated that child sexual trafficking is the #1 illegal industry in the United States, right? So very important, very impactful. So the negative sides, transit for recruiting, transit for these illegal transactions. On the positive side, and this is what really gave me a lot of hope, and in my research and in what I was looking at here at LTD, the amount of times that individuals use public transportation, Amtrak, something like a Greyhound, to escape is very large, right? They need to get somewhere, they need to get somewhere fast. So what do? They try and hop on a bus, they try and get in on an Amtrak. And then the other component, the rebuilding of the life. So, okay, I'm out of this. I am now learning my pathways to healing. So how do I go to my counselor? How do I get a job? How do I get reunited with my family? How do I build up so that I can be okay within myself? Transportation and public transport plays a huge role for that. So a recent Polaris survivor study stated that 42% survivors shared that traffickers use local and or long distance buses for their exploitation. 54% named access to transportation as their barrier to leaving their trafficking situation. 26% shared that public mass transportation played a role in at least one attempted escape, right? So here we are in our own backyard. I mean, we could be that moment of escape for someone. So again, we're located on the I-5 corridor. We're a major highway from Mexico, Canada. We have access points to Reno, Vegas. Unfortunately, Washington and Oregon are world famous. We're recognized hubs on a national and global sex trafficking circuit. In Oregon, the number of victims identified through the human trafficking hotline more than doubled from 2015 to 2021. We were not as high as the ranking of our sister state, Washington. Washington saw a 74% increase in underage and grown individuals being trafficked, according to those who reached out on the hotline. And what is the number one cause of trafficking? Poverty. So that number one, it's a human right issue. Of course, we're very interested in it. But from my role as community resource liaison, the leading cause of trafficking worldwide has to do with poverty. And so these statistics are very hard, but I think that all of us in this beautiful privilege of means need to hear them. 64% of survivor respondents to another Polaris study. And again, Polaris does a lot of data analysis, a lot of research reports. Their focus is on global and national trafficking. So what they want to do is get the numbers. So once we have the numbers, we can execute to action. 64% of survivor respondents reported being homeless or experiencing unstable housing at the time they were recruited into their trafficking situation. Over half. 15% were recruited from shelters and group homes. Now, again, I was case manager for 410 Garfield Safe Sleep Site. I saw both sides. I saw women and transgender being actively recruited into the sex trade. And again, there is a difference between voluntary adult sex work and those who are trafficked. I saw the recruitment happening in our own backyard. I also saw women escaping domestic violence situations and trafficking situations arriving at our door at our 410 Garfield Safe Sleep Shelter, begging for safety, right? And so a lot of heavy stuff. A lot of things. Where do we go from here? That's always the question, right? Okay, we can educate, we can rile and motivate people, but where do we go from here? Where are we in this process? LTD is working in a 4-step modality. The first step is research. So Sarah Koski, the consummate researcher with No Life, you should see my office right now. Stacks and stacks of papers, stacks and stacks of reports. Sorry for all the eco people out there. I do print things out. Jameson, close your ears, right? So, okay, yes, a lot of paper in my office. We're doing the research. From the research, we're building connections. That's the second part. So number one, research. We're getting the research. We're looking national standards. We're looking in our own backyard. The second component of where we're at is the connection. We're building connections. We've built connections with the Lane County Anti-Trafficking Task Force. We've built connections with the Department of Justice's Children's Task Force in town. And what was really interesting in doing that is we learned that both of these task forces didn't even know each other existed, right? So now because of the work that we're doing, we're building those bridges between the two task forces because why? We're better together, we're stronger together, and then we can build and provide those assets together. what we're doing on the second end is, and because of the advice of the task forces, is we're bringing in public safety, Eugene Police Department, Springfield Police Department, the Sheriff's Department of Justice. We're looking at TSA and several other entities, and bringing them here on site, whether Zoom or in person, to a focus group. So APTA has a very unique policy template that they have been passing around the United States for transit agencies. So if you see something or you suspect something, and you're a driver operator, what do you do? And so APTA has kind of this: number one, this is who you should call. This is how you contact. This is how you should act. This is the, the National Human Trafficking Hotline takes about 8 hours to find a solution within the community, right? It's good for what it's designed to do. It's not an immediate, quick response. So how do we get someone to safety quickly? And so that's kind of what that policy is. And it's a Mad Libs fill in the blank for whatever local community. So what we want to do is we want to say, hey, we have this policy template for those who are in public safety, working with Josh and our own public safety team. How should we do this response to, number one, for the safety and security of our driver operators, the safety and security of our public safety team. I've already sat down with the union, listened to a lot of their ideas. They've been incredible in the support of working with kind of understanding these policies. Once we get everybody convened, all of this data, all this information gets handed off to our public safety team, our trainers, our supervisors. They adopt what they think would be a policy, submit it to Jameson. In my assumption, you all will see that as well. Once we get these policies adopted and enacted, then it's go from there. And like I talked to SPC, if all of this work helps or supports one individual, that's what we're here for, right? And so a couple things I'm very excited about is there is a Department of Justice anti-human trafficking pledge. We would like to see potentially LTD signing this pledge. There's only 3 transit agencies in the state of Oregon who have signed this pledge, but dozens upon dozens nationwide, air agencies, transit agencies, cities themselves. And it's just, my heart is full. So thankful to be here. I'm thankful for the leadership of Jameson. I'm thankful for everybody here. Everybody always gets to see me just dancing and prancing around with new ideas, and they're very receptive, and I'm grateful too for the board. So thank you.
And thank you. Any questions or comments? Michelle?
Sorry, I'm full of questions tonight. Thank you, Sarah, for the presentation. Can you just, for the record, tell us what APTA is? I think we all know, but just to get that out there. Acronyms.
I told somebody wrong last time. I made it up, and Jameson passed notes to fact check me. Call a friend. American Public Transportation Association. All right, I'll get it next time, I promise. I shouldn't promise. I'll get it in a couple times. Thank you.
Pete?
Michelle, you stole my APTA thing. Just kidding. Thank you, Sarah. This I want to share that I think this is incredibly important. I've known 2 people who were trafficked. One was for labor, and one was sexually trafficked. And I could tell you this kind of thing ruins lives. The one person who was sexually trafficked, she is, let's just say she's an emotional puzzle at best. And she never, ever recovered both in her mental and physical health from it. So this is important. I'm glad to see that LTD's taking on a role, and apparently you're connecting our communities in a way that wouldn't expect. So thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Heather?
Couple of things. Thank you very much for the presentation. I worked with the juvenile courts for several years, and the juvenile judge on one of my first days said, "Sing it from the rooftops here. This is something I see in my courtroom every single day." So it is here. It's here a lot more than people know and or want to know. Thank you for making the connection to transportation. Doesn't surprise me, and I'm glad to know. And yes, people use whatever they can to get away. So there's a good and a bad to it. Are we thinking, I'm assuming we're thinking of training eventually when we get, so screening, training, okay, and are we thinking of a public service campaign on buses to help ridership identify suspect situation?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. All of the above, and this is where we're gonna work with our great new marketing director, hopefully. One thing that I didn't mention was we are connecting our community locally, but LTD has been in a very unique position to connect our community on a national spectrum. So let me make sure that I, just so I don't get fact checked, National Vulnerable Populations and Transit Work Group. We are now a part of that, which means that there's a lot of large-scale transit agencies that are part of this subgroup at APTA. We, in our mid-market LTD, have been invited, thanks to Portland actually advocating for us and TriMet advocating. They had a presentation that was talking about security on the buses, and one of the women from APTA actually presented, and she had made some sort of side comment. I caught it because I heard the word and I was just voraciously looking for information and knowledge. So I reached out to her. It turned out that she was the head of security for Amtrak in 2016 when Amtrak put together all of their policies. And so she was very involved. After our Zoom meeting, she connected me with two women who are experts in the field in anti-trafficking and transportation. One of them is an educator, and then the other one is Truckers Against Trafficking. And I did not realize that Truckers Against Trafficking, not only do they work with anti-trafficking initiatives with the semis, they have their own subdivision for school buses and their own subdivision for mass transit. That individual and the woman who deals with mass transit on a national level, she goes around all over the nation presenting. She and I were able to get together with the Zoom. They have educational materials. So not only can we look to local task forces for education, Truckers Against Trafficking have 8-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute videos that we can download and put within our own collective education hub. They have survivor supported and trauma informed survivor crowdsourced images and posters that we can put inside that we can co-brand with Truckers Against Trafficking. And so they have pocket-sized resource guides. They actually ship some to Wendy and I. We're looking at different things. Their entire resource has now been open to LTD. So we have things that are already pre-made. They are happy to advise us, anything like that. So I appreciate what you said. Yes, once the policies are there, as much education. And before Pat left, he was so supportive of working with, like Junior League and the Rotaries and doing that education, because even with Travel Link County, there was a lot of work that's done, but people retire. There's a lot of turnover. How can we as LTD kind of take that helm and move forward? So appreciate that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Moving on to some action items. First one is the Operation Command Center and Roofing Project. There is a project going on out there. Todd? Good evening, everyone.
Again, good evening, everyone. I'm Todd Smith, Project Manager here at LTD. We're really excited to be here today because we've hit a major milestone in the Operation Command Center project, as well as the Glenwood Roofing project. And
so true. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Sarah Brightman with the Procurement Office, Procurement Supervisor for LTD, and the Lead Contracting Officer assisting Todd through this process. Real quick, just on general, as far as the procurement that has gotten us to this point. Some of you were here when we did our presentation back in 2022, and some of you are new, but we are on the map at finishing bidding for the GMP, and we're here with Todd, who will present the details and the overview on that. This package, I believe, received about 80 bids, and it has, if completed and approved, it would provide about 26 contractors with bid packages. And we had a successful overall bid with Fortis Construction, who provided the CMGC bidding package for us. And I think we were somewhere in the realm of at least 2 to 3 for almost each package. Some of them received as much as 7 and 9 bids per package, which is excellent. So our contractor did a great job getting a good field out there. And with that, I will let Todd go ahead and explain the project and the details of what comprises the GMP.
All right. Well, early back in, I believe it was September of 2022, we established what we called a target GMP, guaranteed maximum price. And that was based on a conceptual estimate that there's, we have square footages known, but a lot of things that are unknown. So at that time, knowing that, the project budget would probably exceed that, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough funds there, approval to move forward with any early work packages that we needed to. And as the project developed in the design, we found 3 kind of major areas that we needed to take a look at. The discovery of the roof was one of them, and the Glenwood roof, it's the rest of the building's roof. We have a significant portion of this roof that's going to be replaced. And we were also touching a lot of little areas, because when you look at a building like this, the systems are integral to each other. And the roof is one system here, as well as the electrical system, as well as the mechanical system. So they all work together throughout the building. And that's a delicate thing when you're trying to, plan and execute a project and making sure that you have everything you need covered. So anyways, that was identified, and it was put into the CIP, and then that grant went forward, and we're looking at adding that as part of this GMP to this contract. And that was, over $1.4 million, $1.45 million. So that's one of the pieces. The other piece was the modular trailers, which you see out there. That was part of our first early work amendment that we established that we needed to get. We wanted to really continue to keep the operations department together and that continuity together, instead of dispersing them out through different areas of the building, or different, maybe part of them in a modular and others in another place. So we looked at keeping that all together so that the operators and the operation department would stay close as a unit together. And to do that, that had some impacts to cost, and that was over $460,000 worth of work that we're commissioning to do out there. And that's another piece. And then the final piece was that when we looked at, when you look at a project like this, there's a lot of things that you go in and go out, and really what surfaces up is what are the major goals. And one of the major goals of this project was to improve our incident command and dispatch center. And that increased the square footage, the technology, and that had some implications, around $450,000. And so that's what comprises the GMP. That's what increases it to the total amount that we're requesting. We've also added a 2% contingency within that amount so that we could respond to anything quickly that we may need to when we discover unknown conditions. We've done a lot of kicking the tires around here, looking at things and really kind of investigating, but there are always things that come up that you just don't know. And we want to be able to deal with that, plus the code review when that's completed, there'll likely be a few things we got to respond to. So, all of these items still fall within the project budget for each project. So looking at them as a separate piece, the roof and the OCC, Operation Command Center. Each of those budgets are on target. We went through cost estimating exercises the entire way through. And we've checked at each point, each milestone, and made sure that we were staying on our, on budget. And then so that we could be here today with this guaranteed maximum price asking for approval. And with that, are there any questions?
Questions or comments? So will there be additional modular units than what we're seeing, or is that it?
That is the modular unit you will see. So what we have there is one modular unit is going to have the operations office in it with the dispatch, and the other one that's north-south is going to be the operator support building. And so that's where standby, lockers, break room, food vending store, those type of activities in there. And then the third one there is a restroom modular. Fortunately, we were able to locate that strategically so that we could tap into the system there and save some dollars. So
yeah, I'm fine with the change, but I just think I'm sitting here thinking, well, we're approving something that's already happened. Is that right? Or am I...
Well, so the approval, the original approval of the target GMP was 8.265 million. And so that gives the authority to move forward with the early work package, the first work package. But when we talk about the GMP, we want to make sure that we're showing you the entire picture. Okay. It's not just this piece. We want you to see everything together so that you know what that's comprised of.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thanks. So we need a motion.
I move to adopt LTD resolution number 2024-08-21-025, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract amendment with Fortis Construction, Inc. for the purpose of guaranteed maximum price for construction of the Operation Command Center project.
We moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Heather?
Aye.
Lawrence? Aye. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Pete?
Aye.
And I also vote yes. Thank you very much.
Great.
Good luck to us all as we move forward.
Yeah, we're ready to build. So we're going to make some noise.
Go for it.
Earlier when Jameson was talking about him and someone asked about a tour, I thought you meant the buildings, and I thought, well, Todd's gonna be more than happy to share. You can join the tour anytime.
That might be interesting.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. This one's been in the works for a little while. Community outreach framework, Dave.
All right. Good evening, board president and board members. Again, my name is Dave Roth, Director of Mobility Planning and Policy with LTD. Yes, this is an exciting milestone. So I'm here tonight to seek a resolution adopting the comprehensive communications and outreach framework that's been under development for some time now. So I'll jump into my presentation. So just as a status update, we brought the communications framework to the Strategic Planning Committee back in June, and the Strategic Planning Committee unanimously recommended the board adopt the framework that we have in front of you tonight. So that's why I'm here. So the framework is the product of over a year of dedicated work in collaboration with the broader community, our community steering committee, the LTD board, and the Strategic Planning Committee, as well as LTD staff. That dedicated work was known as the Comprehensive Outreach and Communications Assessment, or COCA process. The resulting product, the framework, is a foundational guide for how we'll conduct engagement going forward. It'll help standardize our practices and improve the effectiveness of our engagement activities on all of our projects and initiatives. By following the principles identified in the framework, will improve interactions with the communities we serve in pursuit of improved mobility outcomes. The framework represents LTD's commitment to reset and reinvigorate its community relationships. So how was sorry about that. Didn't realize I wasn't going forward. Can you advance the slide? And one more. Awesome. All right, so why did we do this? Well, a combination of factors drove this important work. These included the arrival of new leadership at LTD, evolving community mobility needs and ridership characteristics coming out of the COVID pandemic, and a need to reset engagement practices on major projects. We know that LTD serves a community with varying needs, and we need a strong relationship with that community in order to effectively do anything. So, inputs to the process. The COCA initiative began with extensive best practices research industry-wide, as well as an assessment of current LTD engagement practices. Our consultant team conducted confidential interviews with external stakeholders to gather additional feedback and information to inform our process. We held a public web survey, and as part of a comprehensive community engagement overhaul, we set up the Community Steering Council. We took staff feedback. We met with community-based organizations. They're the closest to many of the underrepresented and historically marginalized communities we serve. And we took input from the SBC and board along the way. So I'll go into a little more detail on each of these pieces. Next slide, please. I'll just go ahead. LTD deployed a communication and engagement survey to the general public between September and October of 2023. The survey saw input from LTD riders of all services, as well as other LTD riders and non-riders. Results of the survey informed the development of the framework, specifically in understanding how our constituents and customers prefer to be engaged. So how do people want to be talked to and talked with? Some of the results may be surprising, one being that 60% of the respondents have never provided feedback on recent LTD projects, and 65% of respondents were not aware of LTD projects. The survey findings were used to develop strategies that are documented in the framework to extend the reach of our engagement activities and to custom tailor them based on the specific needs of the communities we serve. Next slide. So what did we hear? We heard very clearly that we need to be able to effectively communicate what the problem is that we're trying to solve with any program, project, or initiative that we're taking on. And we need to do that before we move on to the solution development process. We also heard that there's interest in the board playing a larger role in community engagement activities and more actively and visibly being out in the community. We heard that LTD needs to effectively communicate the value that it provides to the business community in broader terms than just specifically ridership. We also heard that LTD needs to cultivate transit culture and transit boosters. How can we grow our fan base? I think there's some opportunities for youth engagement in there as well. So next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the Community Steering Council, or the CSC. So we created a first of its kind CSC, Community Steering Council, that was charged with providing input, advice, and recommendations to LTD on the development of a new framework for outreach. We invited members of the public to apply to be on the CSC, and we convened the ad hoc group of over 20 individuals for 7 meetings between September 2023 and May of this year. The CSC was comprised of individuals from a variety of backgrounds. We had small business owners and employers. We had students, transit riders, non-riders, Eugene and Springfield area residents, and more. We spent a lot of time and carefully considered how we set up the CSC and recruited for it because it was critical that the council be representative of the people in the community. And again, think about riders and non-riders alike. We wanted to create a body or a group that helps LTD better understand what community expectations are around engagement and outreach so that we can transform LTD into an organization that can fulfill those expectations. Next slide. So over the course of its 7 meetings, the CSC developed and considered a range of inputs that formed the basis of the framework. These included transportation and mobility priorities, guiding principles and guiding principles for community engagement, identification of LTD stakeholders and their varying needs, strategies and tactics for engagement, and then priorities and trade-offs for engagement. These inputs and the results of the conversations with the CSC led to the primary organizational elements of the framework, a set of guiding principles, recommended process for stakeholder identification and needs, and strategies and tactics for engagement. So I'll cover each of those here. So the guiding principles are the fundamental beliefs, guidelines, and standards that LTD commits to upholding throughout an engagement process. And these involve or broken into categories that you'll see in the framework around style, content, process, and intent. By establishing these values, we hope to create common ground, clarify expectations, encourage participation, minimize conflict, promote accountability, foster inclusivity, and improve our decision-making processes. Next slide. So the framework also provides guidance on identifying and tailoring communications with our stakeholders. So when we're talking about engaging with the public, who do we mean? The framework provides really good guidance and a very thorough look at our stakeholders. And that's something that the CSC was really impactful with on this framework is letting us know who we should be talking to and make sure we're not leaving anybody out. Understanding the demographics of Lane County as well as LTD riders is critical to ensuring that our transportation systems and our engagement plans reflect community needs. Next slide. And then finally, we have the strategies. So building from a foundation of trust is critical, and that's something that this framework really drives home. We need to communicate clearly, and we need to understand what people need to hear and how to talk to them. We need to engage in collaborative and honest conversations. And then at the top of the pyramid here is a focus on riders. And then the last slide here, next slide, is operationalizing the framework. So a board resolution adopting the framework tonight marks the end of the COCA process, but really a beginning of a new way of engaging and communicating with our stakeholders. And I can give you numerous examples in just the short few months that I've been with the organization of where we've referenced the framework in our various projects and initiatives in terms of when we're meeting with consultants, we're referencing this document and suggesting that this is how we do engagement with the community. So this is already a really good resource for us. Going forward, the framework will be a living document and it will serve as the basis for how we engage on all of our projects, programs, and initiatives. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Pete. Thanks, Gino. Thank you, Dave. You know, I'm pretty impressed, honestly. You've come in here in kind of at the end of this in filling this role, but before you came, I was pretty vociferous advocate of improving our community engagement. I think it's really important. I think it's important for us. I think it's important for the community. This process that gone to, I know it's a lot of work and a lot of resources involved in getting here. I can't wait to see how it pans out as far as the operationalizing it. Thank you and all the other people and staff who have been involved in that. And in a wider sense, I'd also thank the community members who actually came and were part of the process with you guys. So again, thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Other comments or questions? It may be in the report but just wondering if there's going to be a check-in process, maybe a year or two down the road where we go back to some of these folks and say, you notice a change.
Yeah, what we've communicated to the CSC members is that we will keep in touch with them and go back to them from time to time, whether on a project basis or to update the framework itself. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Motion?
Great work. This is really a great step forward for LTD, and I'm excited to see how we end up moving forward and engaging with our community. With that, I move to adopt LTD resolution number 2024-08-21-026, adopting the LTD community engagement framework.
Second.
So moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Heather?
Aye.
Lawrence? Aye. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Pete?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Great work. Congratulations. Okay, we'll move on to alternative work concepts. John Allen.
You introduce.
Hello, members of the board. I'm John Allen, Mobility Services. Joining me today, Sarah Brightman with Procurement. Here to talk about alternative work concepts.
Very much. This procurement may sound familiar. It is associated with the June action item, which produced a contract for the behavioral health services. This alternative work concepts piece was a portion of that solicitation for the travel, training, and hosting assessment services. So this award of this portion happened to receive only one response. While we were hopeful that we might uncover those in the community that provide this unique service, which John will share more about, we did only end up with one who really felt like they could check the boxes and meet the requirements. And of course, procurement performs a thorough review and analysis. We have a requirement to do so when we have a single proposal or bid. And the lead on this, one of our procurement technicians, Darren Busey, does a really great job ensuring outreach and uncovering all of the possibilities. And it was determined that we had everything set out there, but in our community, we have very limited resources that can provide these specialized services. And with that, turn it over to John.
Sure. So this is work that we've been doing for decades. Still, it's important as being good stewards of public dollars that we periodically take this work out for bid and see who can do it and perform at the highest level to our expectations at the lowest cost and in the way that our community deserves. And so this is work that has actually earned LTD national awards. And so I'm going to be describing each aspect of the service. I'll go through relatively quickly. I'll note this is on page 259 of your 293 page packets for this month. So first, my gratefulness to the board for your time and consideration today. So this is work that you'll notice this is a $1.25 million contract. That's not what we spend in a year. That's if we were to extend through the maximum amount of years of a contract with extensions before we go out for bid again. So the actual initial contract term would take us through end of June of 2025 with the opportunity for two-year extensions. That's to align us with our 2-year grant cycle. So every 2 years, we basically look for additional grant funding and look for this to align with that timeline. So there's 3 different things that we look for this contract to do. First, travel training. So we're teaching people how to ride, we're teaching people how to pay fare, we're teaching people things like stranger danger awareness skills. This is for folks with disabilities who might not otherwise be able to ride our fixed route bus system unless they had a little bit of help, a little bit of training to be able to learn the different skills necessary to be able to ride. We actually customize each training for individual members of our community based on their needs. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to come with different life experiences and different life skills. And so we do an evaluation and then we determine what they need. And we come along with them every step of the way until they're able to successfully independently ride. This in turn winds up saving LTD quite a bit of money. So paratransit trips are very expensive. And if someone's entirely reliant on RideSource, we are required to be able to provide that transport, and it is at an increased cost than providing fixed route transit. So it saves us money, but in addition, it's the right thing to do. It creates independence for people with disabilities. We're helping people be able to go places that they want to within our community and live the types of lives that they want. So imagine otherwise being trapped in your home unless you were able to make arrangements in advance or be able to be reliant on a family member or a spouse to be able to take you where you need to go. So this is an important aspect of our overall transportation system. So it winds up being a win for everyone. We're empowering people with disabilities, and at the same time, we're doing it in a way that's cost effective and efficient. It more than pays for itself. In addition to that, we have a transit host system. So currently, that's Kathy and Felicia down at Eugene Station. You should stop by and say hi. They'll be out on the platforms. They're assisting people in transfers between buses during one of our busiest transit environments. So this in particular will help people who are able to ride independently on our system, except for those difficult transfers at Eugene Station. So it may be there's a lot of stimuli, noise, a lot of different buses. Navigating can be difficult. So someone can make it to their bus stop, they know where they need to get out. But being able to walk and roll through the spine at Eugene Station during a busy pulse is not easy for everyone to do. So we're there to help. And if that's the difference that it makes from someone being able to ride independently or not, we're there for them. That in turn, it's service that while we're out there, we're also able to provide an extension to our customer service out on the platforms and out in the public. So people who have questions, whether you have a disability or not, say, hey, which bus do I need to catch to get to Valley River Center? We've got someone out there who's able to assist. We're helping at least a good 1,000 people every month by being able to provide that service. By scheduling these transfers in advance, we also provide a safety net for people with disabilities. So this provides much needed reassurance for families, loved ones who may still have some lingering worries. Is it really okay for someone I care about to be riding independently out in the system? We schedule that, and if someone's not where they need to be at the time they are, we then can call an emergency contact and say, hey, we just noticed that the transfer was at 1 o'clock. They weren't there. Sometimes it may be that someone gets off at a stop early. They decide to do a little bit of additional exploring. We can help find them and bring them back and make sure that they're safe. So it provides that additional safety that I think provides reassurance that people are able to ride independently on our system in a safe manner. Finally, we do eligibility assessments. So for all paratransit riders, we go through an eligibility process where we both make sure that paratransit is the right system for them, and then also let them know about all the other options available to them. So Shopper Shuttle is a good example where people can group together and do a social outing on our system where we go together and get shopping done. We can even assist someone with their bags. So a lot of folks wouldn't know until they go through our eligibility process that might even be an option for them. So one of the nice things about our assessment system is that we can provide expertise based on someone's needs. So in particular, Alternative Work Concepts has extensive history and expertise assisting people with developmental disabilities. So for folks who are looking to ride paratransit or have additional needs that may need to be served on our fixed route system or travel training, we can have them sit down and talk with someone who specializes and knows the types of resources and services they're best going to be able to help them. All that together makes our Alternative Work Concepts great. So with that, staff recommends and looks to the board for a motion to adopt a resolution that authorizes LTD to enter a contract with Alternative Work Concepts for the continued provision of these services. And I'd entertain any comments or questions.
Comments or questions?
I always appreciate how enthusiastic you are.
I really believe in this work, so it's easy to do.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I move to adopt LTD Resolution 2024-08-21-028, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with Alternative Work Concepts for the purpose of travel training, the transit host program, and assessment services.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Pete?
Aye.
Michelle?
yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Lawrence? Aye. Heather?
Aye.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. That
Thank
passes.
you, members of the
Thank you for
board.
hearing us.
Moving on to other business. First item is board member reports. Do we have any board member reports? Pete?
Yes, Ally might have a little, she can get it up, so Ally and I both attended the, transit board member, transit board administrator, seminar in San Jose, California, in the last month in July. I got a chance to represent LTD as a speaker on a panel. We're talking about our recruitment and retention efforts, and I was the only board member actually on that panel, so I got to give the board member perspective on that, and I think that went pretty well. I've gotten pretty positive feedback on that. You can see that I got a couple good pictures. Thanks Ally for putting this cover page together. Flip to the next slide, Ally, please. I'm going to briefly cover a couple things that were covered in this. I'm not going to go over everything because there was a lot of information, a lot of things were covered. But this slide, the first sort of thing, which that actually was before the opening ceremony, was really a couple hour discussion on how to be a board member. Now, I think after 2.5 years of doing this, I kind of know what I'm doing. But I thought this graphic was really good at kind of showing what our role is and how we kind of fit in with the organization and what we do. They had some things about they use an analogy of big rocks versus little rocks as to talk about how we focus. I thought it was a really poor analogy. We have a thing, and I think it's in our strategic business plan or somewhere else, where it shows the relationship of the board as we do the what and the why and the how and the how and the who is done by Jameson and staff. I think that's a better, more accurate picture of our relationship with the organizations. So, take it as it is. Hit the next slide. Now I want to drill down on a specific thing. This chart shows something that is a big trend in the transit industry, and understanding trends in the transit industry. As a board member, you can kind of see where our financial pitfalls might be, and one of these is that the number of bus manufacturers has gone down from 10 to 2 within the last decade, essentially. New Flyer and Gillig are the two remaining bus manufacturers here in the United States, and with the Build America, Buy America, and using federal funds, we had to buy our buses with local, within domestic manufacturers and supply chains. But that's a challenge. So if we can get the next slide, the reason it's a challenge is that we're seeing hyperinflation in the materials and things that go into making a bus. Why is that important? Well, it should be obvious to all of you. You guys are pretty smart. That means the cost of getting a bus and buying the bus and maintaining the bus is gonna go up, and that is gonna have impacts on our long range financial plan, our community investment plan, and our annual budget. So these are real world things. If we go to the next slide, one of the reasons we're having these problems with bus manufacturers is that because of the lead time for things and how contracts are set up. I heard from a representative, Gillig, that basically they're having cash flow problems, and this is why we're seeing companies are exiting the industry. And you can see that a whole lot of blew the sort of a black line there. That's their negative cash flow. That impacts their business and their ability to do business. And this is going to be, it's a major thing that's being talked about at the national level. Jameson has been involved with it. I know he can give you even more detail on this. But anyway, the reason I put this is this is one thing that is going to impact you, all of us in the future, I think, and we need to understand this. There are other things that were done that were talked about in the conference. There was an excellent thing because we were in the Bay Area. They had a whole panel of every agency that was in the Bay Area, and I thought about putting up a slide just showing you that had all of the different types of revenue sources for each of those, and it's surprisingly that each transit agency within the Bay Area had different revenue models, so much so that it was like one was not even, they weren't even connected as far as how they did it. And I thought it was fascinating just as a board member and how I look at our revenue model and kind of comparing and contrasting. Anyway, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to take them, but thanks for listening.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for going, and more importantly, thanks for bringing back the information to the rest of us. Other board reports?
Report, but just to
Sure.
mention, I think it was sometime in July, late July, the Legislative Transportation Roadshow. Lieutenant Jameson was at the table. He, I think, testified later in the evening after I left. There was quite a line for that, actually, so it's interesting to hear about priority projects, et cetera.
Great. Other reports?
Oh, whoops.
There's a delegated authority report in our packet. Any questions on that? Also, we have the monthly department reports for July and August. Michelle.
First, I'm super excited to see that we've welcomed a grants administrator, as long as we've been doing that under contract work. So then with that, that's super, super exciting. But what does that mean for that contract? Like, do we still have that contract in place? Are we able to get away from that?
It's on a month ahead, so it was terminated, yeah.
What's your answer?
There you go. That's awesome.
Thanks, Michelle. Information for future board meetings. Any items that the board would like to see on future board meetings? Then we also had the preliminary financial report for fiscal year 2024 in our packet. Any questions or comments on that? Anything for the good of the order? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.